Hi there, my name is Bryce, and I want to tell you about my immortality plan. Tell me, would you like to try freezing yourself for 100 years? Well, you could do less, but I chose the maximum. Why? Just imagine you live for 20 to 30 years, maybe even longer, and then you get frozen, and you wake up in another world in 100 years and live another life. Isn't that cool? What is freezing? These types of services have actually been around for a long time. No one knows exactly how much of it has been carried out in practice, but I say with certainty that these services have been bought. A lot of rich people have already booked after death, and I wanted one too. Cryonics is a technology for preserving a person. I'm not a scientist, but I roughly understood that after death, blood is drained from a person's body, and instead another liquid is pumped through the veins. Then you are placed in a special capsule with a liquid nitrogen, where you can lie for 100 years, and then you'll be revived. Are there any guarantees? No, but if you have a deadly disease like I have, cancer, the idea doesn't seem so delusional. My parents, on the other hand, are scientists, and they've been fighting my disease for years. I don't know where they work because they always hid it, but I do know that my father was looking for a cure. In addition to the chemo, I got a shitload of other stuff. It was hard to take. It took me a long time to recover. I lost my hair, and then it grew back, and then I lost it again, and that was it for 3 years. I was well aware that I didn't have much time left, but when I heard about cryonics, I got hope. At first I did some research on my own, reading up on the internet, searching for information, corresponding with representatives of the company. So far there were no clients who had tried it on themselves, but there were those who wanted to. I came to see it with my own eyes. There was a girl standing at the entrance, and she was nice and polite. I filled out a couple of forms, then I was offered a juice. I sat in a comfortable chair, and the very same girl spoke to me, showing photos and videos of their project on slides. I asked how I'll be revived if I agree to it in 100 years. She told me that the capsules are put on an auto timer, during which time people and the system will monitor the patient's condition, freezing levels, sterility and tightness of the capsules. On the day the alarm clock rings, conventionally speaking, the smart machine itself conducts a special injection, which we will prepare the day before waking up. Our database is rigorous and confidential. You don't have to worry. Even in 100 years, our company will exist. At least our robots for sure, she said. Everything looked beautiful, and I asked the main question. What kind of shape will I wake up in? How old will I look? And what will become of my illness? To which the girl replied that there would be no more illness, since essentially the body would be resurrected anew. Of course, it will take some time to rehabilitate. You will be taught to walk and talk again. However, you will still have your memory, and over time, it will be restored. The timing is individual. It all depends on your body, she said. I rejoiced because this was my way to a cure. And how much does it cost? She put on the screen a huge amount of $400,000. Yes, that's what I expected. Who said that human life is cheap? I ran home and told my parents. Instead of cheering, my father pounded the table with his fist and yelled at me not to suffer for anything and to treat myself with traditional medicine. It sounded like a death sentence. I didn't think my parents would refuse me, knowing that I wouldn't last 2 years. Even though I was given a positive prognosis regarding longevity, there were very few such cases. In the real world, things are a little sadder. I asked, was it because of the price? Dad hesitated for a long time, then said yes. Oh, so that's how. I wonder then, how much is my life worth? I said, and then went outside. I was in utter despair. It seemed to me that the whole world had turned its back on me. I couldn't sleep, I had no appetite, I had lost a lot of weight, and I was due for another chemo. It cost money too, albeit not as much. After doing the math, I decided that I could save up half for the 12 missed therapies. So I started saving. I just took the money and deceived my folks that I got the drug, and I put it off myself. The only person who knew about this was my friend Union. He was the only one who supported me. I'll die young, wake up in 100 years, and I'll be as young and still healthy, I dreamed. The only thing Union was sad about was that he and I were unlikely to meet. That's all right, I consoled him. I can be friends with your grandchildren after all. We were sitting with him at his favourite coffee shop when I had a seizure. I was in so much pain that I couldn't breathe. Union wanted to call my parents, but I told him to take me to that clinic. I had some money saved up by then, so I decided to take a chance. Union brought me there. I was already half conscious from the pain. A friend told me what it was all about, and then they gave me an injection. The pain receded instantly. I asked what it was, and the girl said that it was a drug that they used in their technology and that they had developed it themselves. I felt so good and easy. I felt happy again. Half an hour later, I pulled out the money and said that I had brought a deposit and wanted to take the place, promising to get the right amount within 6 months. I went along with it and signed the contract and gave the money I had. A month later, the attack was repeated. This time I came to the clinic myself. I was injected again. I gave more saved money. This went on for 3 months. I had to get the money from somewhere. I knew it was in the house. I just had to open the safe. I even knew the code. I just did not want to steal from my parents. Even though they made good money, I still didn't understand why they were saving so much on me. And then my mum came up to see me. She was mad. Threw some papers on the table. She found out that I had missed treatment. Then my father came in and started scolding me too. I couldn't stand it. I just tore up all those papers, then blurted out, "Because I want to live! Because my parents are scientists and they can't help me, despite their profession and money. I don't even know what you do. You send me to chemo, after which I vomit for 2 months. And when I said I had hope to survive, what did you tell me? That it was expensive. How much is my life worth? Maybe you don't need me, eh?" To my long speech, they couldn't answer. They just remained silent. I knew it, I said to myself. At night, when they were asleep, I opened the safe, took the rest of the money from there, and left the clinic by morning. The girl was very pleased with me, and I asked her to freeze me now. She was surprised. "Are you suggesting that I freeze you now? But you realize you're going to die, don't you?" "Yes, I'm dying anyway, every day, every minute. Talking to you now. I'm already dead for 4 minutes. I have nothing to lose. You signed a contract with me. Do it. I paid for everything," was my last word. Was I worried? Yes, I was. I was shaking. I wanted to stop. Meanwhile, they gave me something to drink. I drank, walked to the room, lay down on the couch, and fell asleep. "Bryce? Bryce, son, can you hear us?" I heard very distantly. I thought I was already dead, but for some reason I could hear my parents' voices. Maybe they were mourning my corpse, or maybe I wasn't completely dead, or has it already been 100 years? I opened my eyes, the bright lamp blinding me. I saw my mum and dad in front of me. They stood crying, then hugged me. "Has it been 100 years? Have I been unfrozen? Why aren't you old? Were you frozen too?" I asked. But it turned out to be much simpler than that. This clinic and these people, as it turned out, were crooks. They were luring people with advertising, counting on the fact that in 100 years their company will no longer exist. They injected me with regular morphine, which made me feel high, and then they gave me sleeping pills, and I slept for 2 days. I was discovered by my parents. How? They had worked for the company for years. Their work was used for beautiful advertising. The activity was illegal, so they kept it all from me. They were ashamed, but it was the only way they could earn money from my expensive treatment. My father immediately realized I was talking about their office. That's why he was furious. When they arrived at the place, they almost killed the staff, and since I was their son and they had a non-disclosure contract, they just quit in exchange for me being picked up and leaving town. That's what we did. I realized I had caused quite a bit of trouble. We didn't get that money back. My folks lost their jobs. All because of my stupidity. Dad still didn't blame me for anything, and Mum said it was for the best. Unfortunately, I'm continuing therapy. I almost died without treatment, but my parents are doing everything they can to get me at least one more day of life.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brianna. What? I'm sorry. I thought I heard what you were thinking. Yes, I can hear thoughts. Can you imagine? This is an incredible thing, and it happened to me very unexpectedly. As it turned out, in theory, instead of dying, I got this kind of gift. Well, I'll tell you all about it. In the meantime, guys, like the video, immediately subscribe to the channel, and write your opinion under the video. I will be interested in reading them. Let's get started. This happened last year, when I was returning home with my little brother Tommy after a walk in the park. I promised him I'd give him a ride on the roller coaster just so he wouldn't shoot me at my parents. Small witnessed how a guy came to me late one night and I pretended to go to bed and I walked with him. So he gave me a condition. Either I take him to the park or he tells my parents everything. Well, in general, I began to save money for his slides. Although, to be honest, we had a fun day. I probably haven't been alone with him for a long time. He usually pisses me off with what he puts up with, but that day was different, and Tommy and I talked a lot. I didn't think we'd have anything to talk about before, but it turned out that there was plenty. I even got to know my brother better. After the walk, tired and satisfied, we decided to go eat. Tommy was hungry and we ate burgers on the way. When we were 3 houses away from the house, a dog we didn't know came running out from behind the bushes. It was huge. I shielded my brother, who immediately threw our food to the dog. The dog attacked the burgers, and while she was eating them, we quickly stepped forward. A moment later, I heard the dog running toward us, foaming at the mouth. She wanted to bite Tommy, but I blocked him. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my leg. The dog bit into my leg right on the hip. I screamed so loud that all the neighbors and even my mother ran out. Seeing the picture threw everyone into shock. My mother immediately rushed to us. She threw a slipper at the dog, but she did not let go. I was screaming in pain, and my brother was shaking all over, but I kept protecting him. Suddenly, a neighbor ran out with a shovel and hit the dog, so he ran away somewhere. Whose dog it was, we still don't know. I was bleeding. The dog had bitten through an important artery, and I was losing blood fast. It's good that the neighbors called an ambulance, which quickly took me away. An urgent transfusion was required. I passed out, and when I came to, it turned out that I had a transfusion. Only one nurse came to see me often. At first, I didn't understand why she was so nervous at the sight of me, and then I accidentally heard that she had transfused me with the wrong blood type. Against the background of unfamiliar antigens, I became ill the very next day. I had a fever and couldn't get up. It was so bad. I couldn't even tell my mom because I couldn't open my mouth. I cursed the nurse in my head. She, by the way, ran away from work, somewhere unknown, just like that dog. Surprisingly, on the 3rd day, I became much better. I even remember how a boy flew into my room. He brought me my favorite French fries and iced tea. I knew how much he also adored potatoes, and the fact that he brought them safely only for me, I was very pleased. Tommy was sorry it had happened, but I wasn't. How could I have done anything else? He's my little brother. Tommy leaned into me and rested his head on my stomach. A few minutes later, I heard his faint sobs. "I could have lost you. You almost died because of me," he said. "Don't ever say that again, Tommy. I wouldn't die for you," I told him, and he slowly raised his head and stared at me with round eyes. "I didn't say anything," he said to me timidly. "I was just thinking about it." At that moment, a slight chill passed over my skin, and I suddenly began to panic a little, just like Tommy himself. He looked at me as if I were an alien, and I put it all down to an accident, saying that I just blurted it out at random. He pretended to calm down, but the feeling of unease remained. When Tommy went home, I was still thinking about this situation. Confident that I wasn't crazy because I could clearly hear these sentences in his voice, I decided to test the theory and went down to the cafeteria. There were a lot of people there, and everyone was busy either eating or thinking, just what I needed. I helped myself to tea and lunch and sat down at the furthest table. I looked at the people around me, but I didn't understand or hear anything. At some point, I even thought that I really just imagined it. I finished my meal and went back to the room. Just then, my doctor came. He told me that my condition had improved dramatically, and this is extremely rare. We chatted, and the doctor started to leave. Finally, he suddenly said that I was very beautiful. I was embarrassed. Doc himself was a young guy, and he was very good-looking. At that moment, I was sure he hadn't said it out loud. I suddenly wanted to ask again, but I didn't. I decided to give myself time to sort myself out a bit. As a result, I arrived home a few days later. My life was back on track, but my abilities were also back on track. A couple of days after I was discharged, I heard my mother talking to someone on the phone. She was swearing loudly, but then I walked past her and saw her sitting at the table with her head down. My mother's hands fiddled with a glass of water, and I said clearly, I'm not going to let this stuff ruin our business. I'll do my best. So first of all, I will tell Frank. This is my father. Then she grabbed the phone and dialed Dad. I could see that my mother's lips didn't move, but I could hear her words. Yes, it was still creepy and scary, but I did not react as much as before. Then I started listening to my brother, my father, and my mother again. I did not always succeed, but I kind of trained myself, and over time, I learned to hear not only relatives, but even neighbors. I guess you could call my gift psychic or something. Do not consider it stupid or fictional, because everything can happen in this world. I do not know how much longer I will have this gift, but while I have it, I am considering how to use it correctly and best.